Okay, we are live. We've got nobody on. We are recording though, so if you're watching this later, thank you for joining us at a later date. Hopefully, we'll see some people coming up. I posted this just 24 hours ago, so I realize not a lot of you will be able to join. But I really appreciate you guys coming out to see. Let's see. Oh, we got 7 people on the line already. Good deal. 12. We are bumping up. Okay. I'll tell you what. Would you also bring up the live chat on this or on Luke's screen so that I can, or the live video rather, so you can also see the questions going on. What's up, Brandon? How are you, brother? Good to see you. And here is our questions from yesterday. Wow, we got 126 people on already. Let's roll, shall we, guys? Sorry for the delay. Coming to you here from my house under construction. This is the real rebuild. If you've been paying attention to this series. For those of you who don't know, I live in North Austin. It's a 1970s house that originally I was going to remodel. Ended up doing, as you can see, pretty much a whole new build on my existing original 70s slab. This is actually a neighborhood I live in and have loved. I've been here the whole 15 years I've been in Austin. This has been a great spot for me. And so the project's been really a lot of fun. And I try to disclose as much as possible in my videos where I've gotten free things. And I got to say, a lot of manufacturers have been really generous for me. Like these LVL studs, Boise Cascade gave me a killer discount. I didn't get all of them free, but I did get enough to frame probably a good portion of my first and second floor walls with those at no cost. And then all the rafters in the house, I also framed with LVL rafters. I had to pay for all those, didn't get any benefit on that. But I've got a 100% LVL framed house, which is kind of fun. All right, let's jump into some questions. A bunch of you posted yesterday when I posted this and gave me some questions, so I'll jump on those first. First off, Brandon McCall posted, "Hey Matt, after your trip to Europe last year, what are your thoughts regarding mass timber walls? Do you think you could potentially provide a safe alternative to CMU wall areas that experience hurricanes?" Man, that's a great question. I got to tell you, after that trip to Switzerland and Germany last year, I've thought a lot about their methods and means. If for no other reason that they've honestly been building longer than we have as Americans. And most of us started as Europeans before we became Americans, or we came from other parts of the world. So to see a culture that had been building for, a couple thousand years compared to America, where we've only been building houses for a few hundred years, really, really interesting. The biggest thing that I think separates American houses from European houses is the idea of durability and longevity. And that really struck me. I often talk to people that were builders over there who said, "Hey, I'm building this house for a family member, and they know that their kids are going to inherit the house. So how much different would you make choices knowing that your kids were going to inherit the house or your grandkids were going to potentially live in that house than just the culture that we tend to live in, which is, I'm going to live here for a couple years and then I don't know what's going to happen. I might get transferred to Chicago." So with that in mind, they do a lot of things different over there. And I liked that eye for durability and longevity. I think that meshes well with my desire to build better, to build stronger, to build more durable, more healthy, more efficient. And one of the things that I saw in Switzerland in particular was interesting was mass walls. That's what Brandon's alluding to on this. Basically, if you didn't see the video, there's a factory I visited called Kungholzbau in Switzerland. They built walls there that were literally thick wood walls, almost like a log cabin style, but they did it out of 1-inch thick sheathing planks that they ran opposite directions. They actually nailed it with wood dowels, and they had walls that were 8 inches thick of nothing but wood, made out of eight kind of plywood sections, basically. You could almost think of it as a mass plywood house. And they also taped it all with a bunch of Siga tapes from Switzerland, their home country. That's who my host was there. So they were very airtight. But there was no room for insulation. There was no bays like a house here where we'd have standard framing. That was really, really interesting to see. Uh, Wood does have an insulation value. It's just much, much lower than, a standard insulation like this rock wool bats that I've got over in the corner here. Wood is about R1 per inch. So they needed these thick walls. Some of them I saw were 12 inches thick to get enough R value to resist that cold from coming in. That would work really, really well, Brandon, to your point, in a hurricane prone area, in places that have, flying 2x4s. You could have a mass concrete wall. You could also have a 12-inch thick wood wall, and that 2x4 flying is not going to come through. So, Brandon, I would say certainly that could work in other areas. A bunch of comments. Hopefully, we'll be able to source some of those. I saw one fly by just a second ago. Do you still like and use aero barrier? I think that's still a game changer technology. It's my fallback plan to use that here at my house. I have not built a passive house before and have not built such a high standard for a low blower door score. So I'll be using that here at my house. Okay, Alex Grower or Goer said, what type of building fee structure do you recommend? Cost plus, flat rate, etc. And when do you use a designer versus an architect? That's a great question. Where I am in Austin, Texas, most cost plus builders that are building more expensive projects are somewhere around 15 to maybe 20-ish% on a cost plus fee. And then I also break out my supervision, my project manager, to an hourly rate. So there's a cost plus fee, and then also my project managers are billed hourly to the project. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. I've done it differently in the past. I used to do a flat rate for supervision, and that changed over the years for what I was charging. But the way that we do it currently is we actually keep track of our hours on a job for each one of the project managers. And we bill that job per month just for the project manager's time that he or she spent on that job. And then at the end of the month, when we bill all those invoices, then we bill that plus our fee on the job. I've done some fixed price jobs as well. I haven't done as many of those as cost plus. The issue with fixed price is you really need to make sure that you've got really, really good plans and specs and you're meeting everyone's expectations. The problem with fixed price that I don't like is that it's really incentivizing the builder to cut corners, right? If we decide together this house costs $1 million, whatever the budget is, and then you say go as the client, well, then at every corner, I'm not incentivized to do better, to put a better material on, to stay late, to make sure it gets done properly, all those things. I'm more incentivized to substitute product A with product B that costs 10% less but looks the same, or maybe even product C, which is a lot cheaper and is really not as good. Let's say it's something that's not specified, like there's no sheathing specified. What incentive do I have to use a better sheathing versus a less costly sheathing, or a better water resistive barrier, or even better labor to put those things together compared to inexpensive or inexperienced labor? So my preference is always cost plus, and I tell my clients, hey, we're incentivized together to build a really good house. We've already decided how much I'm going to get paid as your builder, and then together we're going to make those decisions. And I may choose the better material, the better labor. There may be some times when you and I together go, okay, we could use this material or this subcontractor. The cost is here, but in this place or this phase, I don't know that we need to go to that. Let's choose this material or this subcontractor, which is this price point. And together we can decide, we can be really upfront about it. Now, the key, though, is always having a contingency budget available on the job, so that when you run into problems, you misestimate, you have a problem on a job, that you have some pool of money that's unassigned that you can draw from and go, gosh, I didn't realize that lumber was going to go up from the 6 months that I signed your contract to today. The lumber price is skyrocketed. I'm going to draw that $5,000 whiff on lumber. I didn't change any lumber. It just cost more. I'm going to go ahead and put that in to John just gave me $1.99. What the heck? What just happened, John? How did you give me $1.99? Is that super chat? I've never done this before. I'm not sure what happened, but thank you, John. You just bought me a Starbucks coffee. That was really kind of you. Alex, hopefully I answered that question. Give me a thumbs up, Alex, if you got what you were looking for out of that question. And if not, I'm glad to go in deeper. Another question is a whole house dehumidifier system worth it? This might be from Alex as well. If you're in the South, 100%. I now do it as a standard in all my houses. I just plug that budget number in on every house. Labor and materials, I usually plug in somewhere, depending on what market you're in, somewhere between $3 and maybe as much as $400 or $4,500 for a whole house ventilating dehumidifier. I typically use Ultra Air. That's a brand I like a lot. There's several other brands out there as well. But I plug that on every house I build. And if you're in the South, I think you should do that as well. It's a huge comfort issue, but it also protects you as a builder from making sure that you don't have moisture accumulation in the back of your sheathing in your enclosed attic or other areas. So yes, you should do it. And don't believe the hype that you'll find from air conditioning systems that say they have a dehumidification mode or other things that will handle humidity. You really need a separate unit that does nothing but that. Okay, what do we got next, brother? Andrew Haley, dear Matt, we installed a ducted mini split with a Kumo Cloud app. The app is the only control. What thermostat do you recommend to utilize full control of the ducted split features? Oh, that's a good question. You know, Andrew, I've used the Kumo Cloud as well. That's a, oh my gosh, someone just gave me $25. What is that all about? Andrew, can you figure out? Oh, that was Andrew Haley. That's you. I'm answering your question right now. That's really cool. Thanks, Andrew. All right, I'm answering your question right now, brother. I've used Kumo Cloud a lot, and I really like it. It is a good system, and it integrates well with Nest if you like the Nest system. However, I would tell you that all the other kind of features like dehumidification, which I happen to be talking about a minute ago, and some of these other features, I don't find that they work super well with a ducted mini split. Or I'm sorry, did you say ducted or non-ducted? I can't remember. No, yes, ducted. I would generally, assuming it's a good envelope, tell your clients to change the thermostat very little and set your, let's say if you're using a Nest, set it for a daytime temperature and a nighttime temperature. I usually at my house, for instance, set my daytime temps at 76 and my nighttime temp between 72 and 74. I used to sleep at 74 and slept pretty well, but I read a book recently about sleep that says colder is better. So I started turning mine down to 72. Remember, I also have a dehumidifier at my house, so I'm keeping my relative humidity in the house right around 45% all the time. And so my dehum will kick on regardless of whether my thermostat kicks on or not. And I like a separate dehumidistat, not utilizing the Nest or one of those other ones for that. So I wouldn't try and integrate that. I would just have a separate controller. If you don't like that wart on your wall, you can get a remote dehumidistat, which is basically got a phone call and that kicked me off. Andrew, did I answer that? You just bought me and the crew lunch, so I appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much. I didn't expect to do that. Have you guys been doing this before? William, fresh architecture grad here, working on license. Your video is teaching me a lot about it. William, that's really cool, man. If you have a question for me, shoot it somewhere here and I will answer it. Appreciate that. Anecdotally, I know there's a lot of younger architects that follow the build show and like seeing construction. So maybe when we finish up a couple of these questions, we'll walk here for a second and I'll show you a couple of things at my house. I do have a good internet connection here because I knew I was going to do some of these kinds of things. So we've got that going. All right, we've got a question from Barda Gazari. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. Sorry about that. What are the best practices to fasten insulation and rain screen to the wall? And lastly, why choose Polywall instead of tar-based products for waterproofing? Ooh, good question. All right. Since we're at my house in a construction and I can actually show you some of this, let's go take a look. On my house, my exterior insulation is polyiso. I chose that for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons, hopefully you can see, it's pretty bright out here. One of the reasons is because I'm in Texas. The sun is beating down on me right here, and it is bright in Texas. And having a foil-faced poly ice on the outside is a big benefit in this climate zone because we can actually reject that radiant energy of the sun. This is 2 inches thick, and then I just use some standard 1x4s that they stock at my lumber yard. Here they are right here. I haven't finished fastening this one, but you can see we're fastened up here. The one bummer about rain screens is that these fasteners, let's see if I can find one. These fasteners are pretty expensive because now we need a pretty long fastener and it's going to go all the way through the studs. One nice thing about shorter fasteners is they cost less. Typically, if it's a 4-inch fastener or less, it's going to cost way less money than anything that's above 4-inch. So in hindsight, had I gone with 1.5-inch insulation instead of 2-inch, I could have dropped down to a 4-inch fastener and I would have been good to go. Ultimately, your fastener needs to go 1 inch embedded into the studs. So do the math with me for a quick second here. 1-inch embedment, 1/2-inch sheathing, that's 1.5 inches, 2-inch insulation. So what is that? 3.5. And then I've got a 3/4 batten. So now I need at a minimum a 4 1/4 screw, which really they don't make. You got to go up to a 5. So I ended up using, I think these are 5-inch Spax power lags. Hopefully that answered your question. There's a lot of options on rain screens, and actually we're talking to a couple rain screen manufacturers right now about doing a video series on what are the options for rain screens. So you will see that soon. Okay, Barta, last question. Why would you choose Polywall instead of a tar-based product for waterproofing? I'm assuming you mean below grade because actually Polyguard products that are above grade are tar-based. Sorry, my tripod's a little wonky here. Oh, you know what? I'm on YouTube. I should have gone sideways. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna apologize for going vertical here. It's too late to change. Next time I do this, I'll do it in the proper method. But their below grade is a water-based product, which generally speaking, I would say tar-based is better because tar won't break down with water. But it is what it is. Water-based, as long as water is not sitting against it, will work just fine. Okay, let's move on, shall we? Ryan Shin, what is your preferred insulation for attic roof joists? I want to seal my attic like a house to keep outside air, temperature, and humidity out. Okay, so let's talk about this house since we're in a house under construction that will have a sealed attic. Now, this is a vaulted family room space, so it's a little bit different than what we're talking about. But what you can see here is my rafters don't extend through the top of my wall. They're clipped at the sheathing. And on this house, the zip sheathing goes up and the zip sheathing stops so that my roof sheathing takes over. And I've got a piece of tape at that joint. So in this case, I don't have any air sealing duties to need. I strictly need insulation. So as a result, I can use rock wool bats. Less expensive, non-toxic, no need to use spray foam. If I had a traditional framing here where my rafters went all the way out and I was worried about air sealing as well, I'd use spray foam there. And I've done a lot of houses with open cell foam right up against the roof deck. Now, when you do this, you want to take some extra precaution on the waterproofing side. For instance, I don't need an ice and water shield in this climate for ice damming, but I like the backup of an ice and water shield to make sure that I've got really good waterproofing, that even if my roof material had a failure, that ice and water shield below that is going to shed that water and not get my attic wet. So that's what I typically do. All right. Let's check out the chat and see. How do I do that? Okay, here we go. Colonel Corn, thanks for the video about the water heaters. Was able to convince my wife we should upgrade our 17-year-old resistance heater to a hybrid. Yes, you absolutely should. If you have an electric resistance water heater, it is a no-brainer that you should go over to a heat pump water heater. And I tried to make the case that if you have gas and your gas unit goes out, that you can also likely save money in the long term by switching over to a heat pump water heater, plus some extra benefits. I didn't even get into the environmental benefits. That's a whole nother video. I don't typically jump into global warming and some of these greater causes, but if you really want to dig into it, it's a no-brainer to switch to electric. And really, that's what I'm doing at this house under construction. I have gas in this neighborhood, and at my current house, I have a ton of gas appliances. I have a gas generator. I have a gas cooktop. I have gas heat. But you know what? As I do the math and I really think about it, long term, I'm much better off doing a really efficient shell, doing all electric on my appliances and my services, including an induction cooktop, which is healthier for your family's indoor air quality, anyways. That's a no brainer. Doing a heat pump water heater. And then I've got a small solar array I'm going to be putting on the roof. I haven't done all the calcs yet. Positive Energy's in process on that. But my guess is it'll be 6, 7, 8 kW on the roof. And now I'll have a net zero house. And instead of a gas generator, I've been working with Generac. I'm hoping to put their power cell battery storage system in my garage. You probably know about the Tesla Powerwall. Basically a giant lithium battery in your garage that will store the sun's energy. So when the sun goes down, your house can go from powering from the sun to powering from your battery, and now you don't even need a generator. One cool thing about the Generac system that I saw at the International Builder Show, the Choa house, built by what is it, Woodside Homes and Sakasui, a Japanese company that's the parent company. They had the Generac system in there. They can, even if the batteries are like 1% charged, they can start powering the house. So you've got some greater abilities besides what the Tesla Powerwall system has. Anyways, we'll see. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that system at my house as well. All right, what's next? Andrew. I got Andrew here helping me out on questions and comments. Mark Palmer. Mark's a longtime Build Show friend. Thank you, Mark, for all your support over the years. Mark says, do you think replacing an ERV with a supplemental dehumidification unit makes sense, assuming the ducting for the ERV is already suited for it? Southern home. That's an unusual question, Mark. Most of the time, what's happening is what I've done where I've used the supplemental dehumidifier, or I've used the dehumidifier as a venting dehumidifier to bring my fresh air in, and I haven't used an ERV. If you're really using an ERV properly, like what I'm going to be doing on this house, I won't be using any bath fans. My ERV will do all of my venting in the house. So basically, I'll have one port in and one port out, and that's it. I won't have all these bath fans running outside everywhere and all this other stuff. So my ERV is strictly going to do fresh air for me. And as it brings that air in, it's going to help shed the humidity if it's humid out. It's going to help shed the heat if it's real hot, or add heat to the airstream if it's real cold. And then it's just going to be puffing air into my bedrooms and my living spaces at all times. Now, my dehumidifier, on the other hand, won't have a connection to the outside. And my dehumidifier is strictly going to do what it does best, which is take the inside relative humidity, the air that's or the moisture that's in the air, the latent moisture load, and it's going to drop that out and keep my relative humidity at that 45 to 50%, which is ideal for a house. So that would be my recommendation to you, Mark. Would be use the ERV for its venting and for exchanging air from the inside to the out in a balanced fashion. And then don't hook your dehumidifier up as a venting dehumidifier. Hook it up strictly to take air out of the house, dehumidify it, and drop it back in, and that's it. Mark, I really appreciate your support over the years. You're always commenting, and you've always been a great supporter. So thank you for that, brother. Okay, let's see. We had a question posed by Dosinga24. On a house remodel, the HVAC guy is directing me to a Bosch heat pump unit over a gas furnace. Spray foam on roof deck and walls for efficiency. Is this a good idea? 100%. I would definitely get away from a gas furnace and switch to a Bosch heat pump. I don't know a lot about Bosch HVAC equipment, although I did talk to those guys last year, I think, at the International Builder Show, and was very, very impressed. They have some great equipment. Bosch is a huge German company that has great lineage and great heritage on heat pumps. I would definitely do that. I don't know about Bosch, but I am pretty familiar with Mitsubishi. I've used them probably the most over the years. You can get full heating capacity on Mitsubishi equipment if you use their hyperheat down to -5 Fahrenheit outside, which means that when it's really, really cold outside, that heat pump can still extract heat from the outside and dump it into your house at full capacity, no loss in efficiency. Now, when it gets colder than that, colder than -5, which doesn't happen a whole lot in North America, but sometimes it does, you start to lose efficiency. You may need some heat strips 1 or 2 times a year. But the benefit of not having to vent that gas furnace is huge. You probably will save some money as well. Your plumber now doesn't need to hook it up. You just have your electrician hook it up. And in the long run, I bet you're going to save money. And yes, an all foamed house has worked for me a lot in the past. That's a great way to go. It's an easy way to do that. So hopefully that that helps to answer your questions. How do I go back to questions here on my screen? I just need to pull down. Do you have any more for me, Andrew, or should I just scroll through the comments and get a couple? Okay, we got 2 right here. Alex Goer, why do so many builders steer away from ICF versus stick frame? Oh, this is a great question, Alex. ICF has a lot of benefits. I do like ICF. However, it's not as easy, nor is it as straightforward as it can sometimes get pitched. And so if you want to go ICF, I would highly recommend you find a builder or at least an ICF contractor who's done it before and has a lot of experience with it. You don't want to be a builder or concrete guy's first ICF job, if at all possible. I've done a couple ICF jobs, and there's some learning curve to learning them. Once they're done, they're incredible systems. They're incredibly fireproof, disaster-proof, hurricane-proof, but they're tricky and they're not always straightforward. They're also really hard to remodel if you change something. And if you make a mistake and you get a blowout, let's say, during a pour, life gets real difficult for you. So stick framing, if you're like me and you're in a part of the country that doesn't have hurricanes or doesn't have tornadoes, things like that, stick framing is really straightforward. We have a giant machine in America that's planting forests and cutting them down every 20 years and replanting them. Our wood industry is incredible, and wood is an incredible product. God designed this product that's renewable, that sequesters carbon, that grows really quickly and has a lot of structural benefits. That's also really fun to work with. I love woodworking on the weekends. So to build a house from wood and to do it with modern systems like Zip R that I've got here in my garage, or Huber Zip for my sheathing, and do it in a way that is really airtight, that's waterproof, that is well insulated, and makes a great house. If you do it right, Joe Stiebrick says that some of these concepts that I've utilized on this house mean that my house could last 500 years. Put a good foundation in and build a stick framing. And as long as you don't have a hurricane or a tornado hit, if that happens, you're going to be in trouble. But other than that, this house should be around a long time. So, if you're in the coast of Florida, if you're in, places where tornadoes hit often, I certainly see the value in ICF. If you're in other places, I don't know that it's a no-brainer. It may be something you want to do, and that's great. But like I said, find somebody who knows what they're doing. All right, good question, Alex. Thanks, buddy. Innis 2020. Matt, can you talk about air sealing and how to rent common items such as a dryer or a hood? Is there a secondary relay controlled flap, or how is this done without a flap? I think what he's talking about is vent. Gotcha. I think what you're okay. So he's asking about how to vent your dryer or your hood when you have a really tight house. I'm going to get into that here a little bit because I have some makeup air going on. I have induction cooking, so I don't need a really high CFM exhaust for my kitchen like I would if I had a big Wolf unit going in. But either way, if you have an exhaust on a really tight house, you probably need makeup air. And so basically, there's a bunch of units out there. I like the ones from Zephyr. They have some really good systems. I have no affiliation with that company, but they make some makeup air systems for their hoods. which are really simple. And basically, it's a pipe that has a flap that opens up with a 24-volt controller. So when you hit that button to exhaust in your kitchen, you've got a pipe somewhere in their house, potentially in your return air, potentially near the stove itself, that has a flap that opens up almost as if you're opening a window. And now you can have that pressure relief. So air comes in and then is vented out of that pipe. So yes, there is a secondary relay. And they are pretty darn good in terms of closing tight. Not perfect. Usually they're a metal to metal seal with a gasket in there, usually like a foam gasket. So I suspect that there's a little bit of backdraft leakage all the time on those, but not terrible. And you probably do need to figure out how to service those and inspect them in, every 10 years or so to make sure that the weather stripping's still in place. Good question. Okay, next up, Carl Fredrickson. Hey, Matt, following you closely as I start my 1,500 square foot addition in Phoenix, one concern is I want to insulate at the roof deck, but reading all that will void shingle warranties. Reading that insulating it as roof deck, in other words, will void shingle warranties. Don't believe the hype. That's a total farce. There's been a bunch of studies by the Florida Solar Commission saying that all the hype about increased shingle temperature reducing their life is bogus. Yes, your shingles will be a little bit hotter, but not enough to make any difference in their lifetime. And so don't worry about that. Check out those articles. If you Google Florida solar energy roof shingles, I bet you'll find that study really, really quickly. Ken Maria, hey Matt, I've been trying to figure out how to get healthy air into a garage wood shop and hopefully filter out harmful small dust particles. What do you suggest I use? Wood shops are a whole different deal. You really need a high particulate filter that's going all the time, and a bunch of the big manufacturers like Jet and Gorilla make those. And then you also want downdraft dust collection on all of your tools. Pretty straightforward. Definitely check that out. You can buy all that stuff at Woodcrafters and findwoodworking.com. If you're a member there, there's a million articles on how you can do that. So lots of good information there. Okay, next up, question from Yakov Dury, Build Show member. Thank you, brother. Hey, Matt, I'm renovating a house I just bought in 1976 here in South Florida, or a house built, sorry, in 1976 in Florida. The attic is ventilated, and I want to use open cell foam to seal the attic and condition the attic for air conditioning. Great idea. You're probably going to have to take off your ceiling drywall to access that attic correctly and be able to really get at all the joints and make sure it's done correctly. And most likely, you're going to have to change the roof as well. You're going to have a bunch of roof vents. They're going to need to be closed off. You're going to want to do some of that air sealing with canned foam and with caulk or tape prior to the open cell foam crew coming. And so being able to really inspect that from the underside and really taking a look at the underside of that roof sheathing, making sure everything is good, doesn't have any leaks, that's going to be your best bet. And ultimately, replacing that roof, whatever's on there, with a better roof is a good call, because now you're actually going to be able to verify that you've got a really waterproof roof as well. Okay. Do I need to seal the attic floor if I have a conditioned attic? Same guy, Yakov asked. No, you do not. If you're sealing off of the roof, you don't need any insulation between your ceiling and your attic space. You can just leave that bare, and you don't need to worry about sealing that. It ends up being kind of semi-conditioned space in your attic, so it's it's not exactly unconditioned space, nor is it the exact same temperature. In Florida, where you are, my guess is it'll be a couple degrees hotter than your house. If you have a dehumidifier, it's really good to get some dehumidified air up there as well to make sure that you don't have higher moisture accumulation in your attic space. So you may consider a little plug-in dehumidifier that has a pump, and you pump that into a drain nearby and run that in your attic, set it at 55% relative humidity, just to keep that attic humidity low so that you don't have any issues with that in the future. Look for an article by Joe Stiebrick on buildingscience.com called Ping Pong Water. Ping Pong Water. That'll kind of clarify that for you. DJ Walker. Hey, DJ, I know you, brother. You've been a long time supporter. Matt, in one of your recent videos, you talk about air sealing if you have limited funds. There was a lot of talk as of stealing, but I didn't hear about moisture management. Sealing, I'm assuming you mean. Moisture management is ultimately more important than air sealing. And by moisture management, I mean bulk water. So in the priority order of the things that we're going to control in our house, bulk water is number one. You need to do the best waterproofing you can on the outside of your house. That means things like overhangs, gutters, head flashing on windows, installing windows the best practice, putting sill pans under windows, protecting the bottom 2 feet of your sheathing, your wood to foundation connection. Really using all those methods you've seen me use, because water is your number one enemy. Then behind water, once you get all that done, that's when you really want to focus on air sealing. And that's a big reason why you've seen me go from sheet applied waterproofings that just lay loose to peel and sticks, fluid applied, zip sheathing, all these other systems that are basically fully adhered to the sheathing. Because now I can not just get good waterproofing, I can get really good air sealing. And the outside is the best place to do that, I think. It works in all climate zones, whether you're in the north or the south. If you're in the north, you also need to worry about this vapor barrier issue. And how do I stop air from getting into that cavity? And how do I slow down vapor transmission? Because I want to make sure I don't have any, in the wintertime, cold condensing surfaces in the back of my sheathing. But if you're in the south, air seal everything on the outside, no vapor barrier on the inside. All right, hopefully I answered that for you. What's next here, Andrew? Gosh, this phone is really small and I'm getting old. My eyes are not nearly as good. I'm from Northern Europe. Hey, how about that? This looks like Klaus Piedrich. How would you build your house differently if you're doing it in the north? How comparable are your practices with colder climates? You know, that's the beauty of how I'm building this house. The only thing really I would do differently if I was in the north, if you've been watching this build, is I'd go thicker on the exterior insulation. I've got 2 inches of polyiso here. This would probably work up to climate zone 4 or 5. I'm in climate zone 2. If I was in climate zone 6, 7, 8, those really northern climate zones in North America, I would increase that to at least 3 inches of exterior insulation, better 4 or 5 inches. Check out buildingscience.com. Joe Stiebrick wrote a paper called The Perfect Wall. And also it basically talks about the perfect roof and the perfect foundation or floor. And if we get all of our insulation on the outside, or the majority of our insulation on the outside, and we don't have water issues, then you know what? Our structures last a long, long time. And that's pretty much what I did here, was the perfect wall concept. However, I still have some cavity insulation on the inside, and I did that for cost reasons. Really, I've met my code mandated insulation with what I've got on the outside of the house. But to get to passive house, to go to that next step, I'm going to be doing insulation inside my cavities. So I'll have R13 Rockwool bats in my walls, and then I've got R13 or so on the outside continuous. And then in my roof, I've got R26 continuous, and then I'll have R38 Rockwool bats in my roof rafters. So I'm going to have a very, very well insulated house that would work probably up through climate zone 5. But like I said, if I was in a more northern climate, I would add more exterior insulation. All right, Stephen Steppen just bought a 1940s home with almost no attic insulation. What would you recommend? Oh man, that's so common in America still. Check out my video called Insulation 2.0. That's what I would do. I would air seal really well between the attic floor, which is basically your drywall, or your plaster, probably a 1940s house, and that attic. Air seal all that space really, really well. And since you have no insulation or little insulation, it's going to be really easy to do. And then add insulation on top. But do a really, really careful air sealing job first. And think about any vented appliances you have and potentially replacing those. For instance, if you have a gas water heater that's atmospherically vented, standard efficiency. That's a big siphon for money just coming up through that vent all the time. So if you can avoid that, that's definitely going to be best. And getting rid of those appliances to go with more high efficiency, unvented ones, that's going to be the way to go. Man, we got a ton of good questions here. Let's see. Steven has a question. Hey, Matt, just bought a... Oh, that was the one I just answered. Hopefully that answered it for you, Steven. Gosh, guys, we've had a lot of good comments. Maybe I need to do this more often. It's been a while since I've done this, and I know that I'm not getting to all the comments. Sarah, thank you so much. Sarah Parker just gave me $5. I don't know what that was for, but thank you, Sarah. That was kind. That will buy me a cup of coffee this week. Looks like we got a bunch of new Build Show members as well. For any of you that are Build Show members, I really appreciate your support, guys. You get a little BS next to your name, which is kind of funny because it stands for building science, but it could be misconstrued to mean something else. But I'm going to start doing these Ask Matts more often. And I would love to hear from you on what things you want me to answer. Obviously, I can't get to all of you, but I'm going to do my best to get to as many of these as possible when I do these. We're going to try 41 minutes. Let's try and answer one or two more, and then we'll call this session complete. How's that sound? Andrew, what's next up for me, brother? I'm going to take a sip of water here. Hang on one sec, y'all. Okay. Levi Godwin. I'm in Cedar Park. Hey, that's just like 10 miles north of here. In a 1952 smaller house, how do you feel about using electric tankless water heaters to saving space? Is that a good reason? My tank takes up space by our back door and looks bad. Oh, man. Levi, I'm just not a fan of electric tankless. Electric tankless are the same efficiency basically as an electric tank. You spend $1 and you get $1 of hot water out of them. The problem with them in my book is I need a giant amount of amperage to heat that water instantaneous. And so now you've got to get an electrician to put a big fat 8 or 10 gauge wire with a 30 amp or maybe higher outlet, or not outlet, breaker to that location. And that's brutal, man. I do not recommend them. I don't like them. I don't think they're the way to go. When you get a heat pump water heater, assuming you saw my video that I posted the other day, the least efficient one is 3 times more efficient than an electric tank or an electric tankless. And the most efficient one is 4 times more efficient, which means that for the $1 that you spent on electricity, you get $4 in hot water. You also get the benefit of some cool dehumidified air. So I would move that unit to a location where that cool dehumidified air may benefit you. Your garage could be nice because it's usually hot in your garage, and this will help cool and dehumidify it. You could even, they're pretty quiet, put it in your laundry room or utility room or some other space in the house where you could take advantage of that cooling. I didn't get into this, and I meant to on the video, but a bunch of them are ductable as well. I think the Ream unit is ductable. So you could have it in a closet, let's say in your pantry. You wouldn't have to look at it if you didn't want to, although I don't think they look bad. You could duct air into it, and then the cool dehumidified air coming out of it could cool your laundry room. It's going to help you about 9 months of the year. There will be some days in January where you won't want that cold air, but you could also switch where it goes. For instance, I did a house a couple years ago where I did this. I put it in a foyer closet. Let's think about this right here in my house. So for instance, when you walk in my front door, which is here, you walk in that front door. I haven't framed the walls yet because I'm waiting on my insulation, but this is my powder bath right here. This is my foyer coat closet. And then, gosh, how do I show it? And then this closet back here, I could have put a heat pump water heater, and then I could duct that air to my powder bath to help cool it. I could duct it to my family room behind me here to help cool that. Or in the case of that house I built a couple years ago, I ducted it to the kitchen. And then I realized in the wintertime, oh, actually, we don't want cold air in the kitchen. So then I put a damper in it and one more duct, and I ducted it into the foyer. In the winter, if your foyer is a little cold, no big deal. In the summer, having that extra cooling in the kitchen space, really, really nice. So that'd be a way to do it. Take advantage of the benefits and really make it something that's worthwhile for you. All right, guys, let's take a 2-minute tour of my house under construction, and then we'll sign off. And if there's any last comments that come in, I'll see if there's any that I can answer. But I think I've showed you guys some of this on video before. We're making some good progress. Here's something you haven't seen before. I'm going to be doing a video on this upcoming, but a little behind the scenes. You know how I'm a stickler about my waterproofing. This is the side of my house that has kids' bedrooms up here, and these windows haven't been installed yet, but we're getting close. And I've got a 2-foot overhang up here, but as you go down here, this door to my garage and this window to my laundry room are fairly exposed because it's pretty high up where that overhang is. So I had my steel guys make me these really, really nice steel awnings. I'm super, super happy about these. So what'll happen is I'm going to put wood on top of these. My friends at Delta Millwork are helping me figure out which wood to use, but I'm going to put wood on top, and then I'll put a piece of zip sheathing and tape it for waterproofing. And then eventually I'll get a metal roof on top of that when I put my metal roof on the house. And then my hardy siding will integrate with that. And now I've got this great little awning. So when I step out of the door here, coming out of the garage, I'll have a shed over here eventually. I won't get wet, and that door will be well protected too. Same with this window here, but even more importantly, my big kitchen window and my even bigger window for my door back here. Check that bad boy out. There's Johnny putting the final touches on it right now. That big old awning has a 4-foot overhang. So this door right here, which is going to be a big slider, will be thoroughly protected. And this kitchen window is going to be protected as well from this awning. Now, we also put them up fairly high and made sure that from the inside you weren't seeing the bottom of the awning. I didn't want it to look like we were kind of crouching down in the house underneath that big overhang. But the guys got them all bolted on. We reapplied the foam. We're going to do a video on how we made these and how we installed them coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. Let's see. We got 1 or 2 more questions that Brandon, thanks, brother. I appreciate the tip. Okay, let's see if we can answer 1 or 2 more. Laura Thack. I'm doing a PWF, permanent wood foundation, and wondering if you had an experience, and if so, what are the best practices for building one? I've never built one. I was always intrigued by that. You know, you might get on findhomebuilding.com. If you're not already a member there, it'd be worth your membership just to read about their wood foundations because they've done several good articles on that. I think they're very interesting. They could be very long lasting. You definitely want to put a sheet applied membrane on the outside, and I would go to a really thick one, like a 60 mil product. Polyguard makes a really good one. And you might even consider double overlap, which means, you know, it comes in a 4-foot roll, let's say. So put a chalk line at 2 foot and put a second layer on. So you basically have 2 layers overlapped by 2 feet. If you do that with a 40 or a 60 mil product, you'd be all set. That wood foundation would be well protected. Do a good drainage system like the Polywall Arroyo drain system. Make sure you got some clean outs for that. And that wood foundation is going to go out a long, long time. And it's pretty cool that you could actually do it without concrete, isn't it? Well, I guess you'd have a footer down there, and then you'd have the wall after that. But either way, pretty cool stuff. Guys, thank you for all your support. We're coming up on 50 minutes. My throat's getting dry. I need to grab some lunch, and I got some stuff I got to do this afternoon. Really appreciate all your support. Give me a thumbs up if this was helpful for you. And we'll do these again in the future. We've got 650 people on the line, so obviously people appreciate it. Thank you, Kyle. We'll try and do these more often. For all of you that paid me a tip or paid me for a question, it was really kind. Holy cow! I didn't expect to make $90 by doing a Q&A session. That's really nice of you guys. And as a side note, I do some consulting sometimes for people that are building their own houses. I'm kind of expensive, but I often do that for people for 30 minutes or an hour just to run through their plans or their specs, to ask questions one-on-one, that sort of thing. If you want that, you can contact my office, or you can use my hello@reisingerbuild.com email address. Steve on my team is the one who's answering those. I get overwhelmed with comments, guys, between YouTube and Instagram and emails to my office. So I apologize if you sent something to me and I haven't been able to get to it. I mean, it's in the order of like 1,000 a day. So please forgive me if I haven't gotten back to you. It's not because I don't want to answer. It's just simply I just don't have enough time in the day. Plus, with 4 kids and trying to eat dinner as a family every night at 6 o'clock, I got to shut it down at some point. And literally, I could go 24 hours a day just answering comments and emails. But guys, I really appreciate it. One last thing I want to mention. We've got some swag coming up soon that will be available. Build hats, Build logo, and Reisinger Build shirts. We're still building out that store. I've mentioned this before, but we actually are coming soon. So if you're interested in some Build swag, you'll be able to get that before too long. So stay tuned for that. And last thing, comment about when's the best time to do this. I just randomly thought, gosh, I haven't done this in a while. I need to do it. And so I put it on the calendar for the next day. But is it better to do it at night or on the weekends or at 3 o'clock Central Time instead of 11 a.m. Central? I kind of thought this might be lunch hour for the East Coasters and a little bit early for the West Coast, but at least job sites were opened up if you're a builder. Before noon, Kyle says, okay, good. So my thought was right to do it in the morning. And again, thank you for all your Build Show member supports. It's $5 a month to become a member. And YouTube takes $2 of that, and I get $3. And I appreciate that. That helps pay for my family's expenses and my budget. And YouTube's been really good to me over the years, so I really, really appreciate that support, guys. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Build Show. Of course, I have to end with that.